with me, and so we have a conversation in my studio here. So we're going to be a little informal, but we are not going to compromise on the matters that need to be brought out to the fore today. And to those of you that are watching live on YouTube, it's happening from the Buffalo City. And if there's anybody that's got the link, please share it with everybody in the house so they can also put it on their status. Okay, if you have a link of our live streaming on YouTube, put it on the big screen or somewhere so colleagues in the house can share it with people at home so they may join us on YouTube. Last night we were live, and even now we are live. We'd love to share it. So if you see the link, if you get the link, make sure that you put it on your status, put it on your WhatsApp status, put it on your Facebook status, put it on your X. When I say X, I don't mean your old girlfriend. I mean X as in Twitter. You put it on your Twitter and take a picture of it and put it on your Instagram. And if you want to do a small video clip about where we are, wait on TikTok. Okay. And we do have a TikTok platform, at BOM. That's right. That's right. Let's get Mr. Kokonga's mic going. Colleagues, is it on here?
Yes. Hi.
It's easy. All you do is you use your surname, and the mic goes.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Lovely. Put it 10 years. If we were to do the BOM state of affairs in 10 years and look back, probably we would start about how the idea came about. We would start with the birth of BOM and where you were aiming at, what your objectives were. But I would love to start with, of course, the birth of BOM. What brought this idea to your mind?
Yeah. The reason why I'm thinking, I'm trying to figure out where to start, because it's not just an ordinary idea that sort of that was driven by maybe business interest or something. It's something that came as a vision when I was growing up, very young. I used to go to school, rural areas, walk, an hour to school, and as I'm walking, then there will be these visions, Then build. When I get to school, disturbed by the bell of the school, then I attend the school afterwards. When I walk back, I continue. So every day, something like that. So it's something that is more talking to different communities, converging, having a same purpose. So everything evolves around that, which is more the building and coming up with the solutions. Yes, music, I was also motivated by my wife, like any other artist. When we do things, she's not fulfilled till she's got a recording deal and all that. And that's how I got to the music business. At first, I went to, I think, EMI. That's where I met Sizwe Zako and the whole crew to try and look for a deal for her. But when I was there, I think the guys that I met, they saw more than just a deal. So they started me to engage in business side of things. I think that's where I talked. I think I was working with the CEOs then, Evan Sloshbeck and them. Then we got to the JVs with EMI. At the same time, I think before Mr. MTHATHA Sambro, I was working very close with Rob Hoyer, who was then a CEO there. So that made me to understand the commercial side of music, the value chain of music, and also the legal aspect, copyrights and all that stuff, different sort of rights in the music sort of thing. And also at ESCOM, because I did engineering, I was more on the development of value chains, in customer services, delivery of electricity and all that. So I was able to map that and create a methodology that talks to addressing issues of music. So the thinking is engineering thinking processes, So that's why I'm able to link things. And that explains also stakeholder engagement and alignment there of all these things, because I always have the start and the end. So I'm able to see that within that ecosystem, probably you're gonna have 10 or 15 business units inside, like within, then link them. So if you create a musical note, I know that it doesn't just disappear. It's gonna go, bounce, in all the corridors, and as it moves, there are different sort of communities and rights that are associated with that, and tariffs and all that. So, so that is the thing, yeah.
Before you fly too much into the future, I need to be careful that my conversation with you is yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And as part of that yesterday, you've created a brand, and BOM has become a brand. And some of us probably indirectly don't pay particular attention to the fact that BOM is Battle of Municipalities. Why municipalities?
Okay, I think for BOM, I think during the time of Minister Paulo Jordan, and I think the deputy was Mamuntombazana Botha, they approached me to come up with a solution in the Eastern Cape, because I was already working with the Department of Arts and Culture, doing IMBIs at that time, different provinces. Then they said, look, we would like you to do something in the Eastern Cape. And then there was a Forte Foundation that had a studio called the AVC, or Mire Makeba. So I was appointed to be a project leader there. Then we did a quick wins sort of solution with all the stakeholders. So I ran that in trying to create a content for 2010 World Cup, solution. So we gathered all the activities that were happening in the province. Now, immediately after 2010 project, I realized that there's a lot that needs to be done in all the districts. So we had sort of programs that were looking for talent in all districts of the Eastern Cape, together with DESREC, the Department of Arts and Culture, Sport and Recreation in the province. And I think that was the birth of BOM then, because we're calling it just a gospel talent search in the province, but then the provincial said they don't have enough resources. So I can maybe go to the private sector and take it national. But as I was dealing with that, I obviously had challenges that I was facing whilst doing that program, which there was no engagement with communities, because they gave us facilities which were mostly vandalized, And immediately after the bus of BOM, we do auditions, we move to another town, then there's no sense of connectivity or maybe engagement, particularly with the artists in that area. They will wait for another BOM following year and all that, So we felt that it was a good idea to work with SALGA. Then we approached SALGA nationally, and they welcomed the idea. So Battle of Municipalities was a stage of the competition where the districts were able to participate. So it was a finale, Then, as we were talking in some boardroom in Pretoria, a SALGA office, the other lady said, maybe we can actually sort of nationalize this, so that it's not just the Battle of Municipality of the Eastern Cape, Okay. Then once that came, I then quickly went to the DTI then and made sure that we do the necessary things to sort of professionalize and register it.
Let's just go back to, you mentioned talent search, particularly gospel music. Did you drop that?
No, I didn't drop it. Actually, that's where all things starts. You know, I think the reason why we started with gospel music is because it's a very resourced sort of cluster or basically sector, because with gospel music, obviously there's a lot of activity in churches. Churches are well resourced in terms of the equipment, and also they've got the audience already. And there's no church that can laugh when the young talent is trying to sort of do something. So there's support. And in those days...
I remember seeing you with Professor Hawk Makepula because you were busy with the churches. And because, yeah, there's Holy Spirit in that environment.
Amen.
Many...
Yes. So I work with a lot of, actually, even my experience, I sort of, that is where I got a lot of experience in the gospel fraternity, because I was working with a whole stable of gospel. Your Rebecca, Vuyo, Sizwe Zako, and all that, you know, and doing management, copyright. So I've got a lot of experience there.
Is there a possibility we might see gospel music being part of the ecosystem in the future?
It is already part of the ecosystem. It's just that it's a matter of resources.
Okay.
To say that we can't sort of activate all the art forms at the same time. Okay. Otherwise, from gospel, we then moved and got to poetry, dance, drum, or basically all the art forms, including visual arts.
Let's talk about, I know we don't have a lot of time, but let's talk about the disruptions that came with COVID-19, how they probably affected BOM.
Well, like everyone else, obviously, the beginning of that, it affected us. But I think with regards to BOM, that is where we grew the most. Because whilst we were locked, you know, in our places, that is where many concepts were conceived. And I remember that the first proposal that we developed was talking to the TVET colleges, because there was no activity, there were no competitions, and Eastern Cape became the first to do choral competitions whilst we were on lockdown, you know? And that launched our socials, and people were able to watch on YouTube.
Wow, I think that deserves a big round of applause.
So we also, you know, worked with a lot of companies that assisted us, particularly in that. Like, for instance, Stage Element, they were also instrumental to make sure that all the support that we needed was sort of provided, you know. So we were able to do these things without audience. We were able to make sure that we comply and have the minimal number that was needed in the venue, sanitize, doing everything. But at the end of the day, we were able to broadcast something. And that is where we started to challenge many other provinces. And that's what basically COSAXA saw to sort of trust us, you know.
Those days we were more like Eastern Cape, just strictly Eastern Cape.
Yes,
okay,
yes.
That's yesterday. Let's get into today. Let's talk about the status quo BOM post-COVID-19, where we are today, the expansion and the growth that you've seen with BOM.
Well, I think now BOM is growing very fast and very big, and one of the strengths of BOM is it's really in relations. We are able to build a lot of relationships, you know, relations. I think our approach, maybe if I can make an example, we work with municipalities, and SALGA is assisting us to lobby municipalities so that we can be together and work with them. But if I were to maybe just show you, if, for instance, we need to work with a particular municipality, before we would need to source maybe a meeting with a mayor or MM or whoever, then we can't do anything in that municipality unless there's a buy-in in the management. But then we felt that we can develop maybe 8 to 9 different nodes in the municipality. We can talk about, let's say, maybe the Eastern Cape, let's say districts, because local municipalities are going to go to 47 or something. With all the 9 districts, we can be able to say they are battling all of them without necessarily having one office facilitating that. Because our point of engagement will be, for instance, a TVET college. TVET colleges were built following the same demarcation of municipalities and all that. That's why each and every district there's a campus of a TVET college. Same with universities, you know. Same with the art centers. So same with even the SAPS, you know. So you'll find BOM stakeholders are coming from all these municipalities. By the time the office of the mayor comes, already we've made those engagements, you know. So now that solidifies, you know, and makes us to be more effective. And now as we do that, we develop different stakeholders in all these things so that when we are there on the ground, there's that kind of support, you know. So that is how we sort of strengthen, and I think that is the power of BOM, is in relationships. Yeah. Again, if we do a talent search, I'll make another example. It's easy for us to say we look for talent, let's say soloists, and the response in this particular maybe college or university or municipality, even public, the response, let's say maybe in a college is 100 people or 200 people that say we can sing. Of that, we know that probably 20% are people who are doing engineering. They've got problems. That the other 20% that is doing maybe culinary, you know, because they can sing also. So all these people, they are from different fields of study. But here, they are gathered because they want to sing. Now, as a BOM, we are able to say, as much as you can sing, but what are the other underlying problems that we are having? You know, now I've got a problem of placement. You know, I can't get, you know, a place where I can do the practical side of things. Now, as BOM, it's easy to say, okay, Southern Sun, because these students are busing, you know, all these magnitudes to your hotels when we have events, how about creating a platform for them so that they can experience and have the opportunity and their problems are addressed? We are able to say, Yamaha, Stage Element, Sarah, if you show these guys one thing or two, they are able to do weddings, they are able to do funerals with their sound. They're not going to bend speakers. In the event that they don't got jobs, they are able, you know, to be self-employed, you know. And basically, there's no field of study that we cannot penetrate. For instance, now, there's SAPS talking with the students who are doing safety in society. The course has been around, but there are gaps. You know, as much as these students are doing that, it does not necessarily mean that by having that qualification, they are going to go to police, you know? So now, what is it that we can do to make sure that we bridge these things so that there are no gaps like that?
You want to be a police.
And we can't just, you know, we need to create such platforms so that there's an engagement.
Correct. Yeah. I like that. And that engagement would probably lead us recommending that you go to Harmanskraal. If you want to be a police, we still need to take you to Harmanskraal, okay?
So maybe just to finish that, at the end of the day, I'm trying to sort of show the networking and the strategy of BOM.
Yes.
Ultimately, medium to long term, you want to be able to do an event and make sure that all fields of study in a university or in a TVET college, they find something to do in that event. We can't be saying that to employers must take, you know, these students, whereas as BOM in our own legal event, we don't find a space, you know, so that they can do something, you know. So that's the ultimate goal, to say, if you are marketing, there's a lot to market in BOM. If you are cooking, there's a lot to cook. Basically everything, even including construction. There are a lot of people who are in needy sort of areas and communities where these artisans can build houses, can paint, can fix things, you know, and in return, they are able to get the credits that SAQA is requiring out of them.
Okay.
So that needs to be a solution that simulates the same work placement. For instance, if in the work placement, for them to qualify, they need 18 months of practical to get their diploma. Why can't we gather as the stakeholders? For instance, TVET colleges, there are 50 TVET colleges. Imagine if all their events, graduations, stakeholder engagement, galas are done, you know, collectively, and you take the very same students and say, this is a calendar to do everything. We might not need to be having so much number. More than 90% of students are not placed anyway. Whereas we have, you know, events, you know, so we can map out that and simulate that to be the same sort of output that you would get in a formal employment. So that is the ultimate. Thank you.
Wow, wow. Where to from now? I'm getting to the tomorrow aspect of our conversation. The future, where do you see BOM? I don't want to say in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, but where do you see BOM, and how do you think BOM will then reach that particular destination from a coherent partnership point of view? I need you to talk to me about who else do you need in the ecosystem to get to that particular future? Where to from now with BOM?
I think to complete the whole ecosystem, I think the biggest component that is needed the most is the business, ecosystem, you know, of BOM. Because I feel that the kind of market that business community is looking for, you can find it within BOM, you know. If you talk about the youth, you know, BOM is engaging a lot of youth in all its programs. So you'll find there. If you are a brand that say, I want to sell things with the youth, you'll find there. If you are a brand that is looking for institutions, you know, to engage, you know, like for instance, we are in partnership with COSAXA, which is now the College Sports Arts and Culture that governs all TVET colleges. They have 50 TVET colleges, and we are doing national events, which means that we are in touch with all of them. We are in partnership with FAPSA, which basically a body that works with all universities and also works with TVET colleges, 76 institutions. So if you want that kind of market, you can find it in BOM, you know. And also, we recently also are signing another structure of SRCs, SAVETA, all the SRCs of TVET colleges nationally. So that is youth. And also, I mean, we are working, you know, with SALGA, you know. So there are people who are also civil servants who are employed. So there are churches, you know, when you talk of gospel, there's no segment that is not here. So we talk to, engaging all LSMs, you know. So it's a matter of just sitting down and saying, how do we ensure that each and every partner, particularly business partner, is benefiting something out of the whole ecosystem of BOM? So from now, we are looking forward and we are working hard to engage a lot of businesses, but it is important for us not just to go and say we are looking for money, but first we find purpose, why they should come. You know, because
I like that, because I was going to ask you about, my last question would be whether or not you see BOM's expansion and its growth trajectory into Southern Africa. Because South Africa is regarded as a big player insofar as social development, academic development, political stability, and all of that. So, do you see BOM's footprint in the entire Southern Africa in the near future?
Yes, I mean, last year already, we saw the participation of people from outside. For instance, the winners of Choral is a choir from Lesotho. So they are the defending champions, you know, in the BOM finale. So I do know that they're gonna be here. That's Lesotho, Swaziland also. There's a choirs from Swaziland, you know. So definitely, you know, we are sort of looking and also growing, you know, to that side. But also even beyond the continent, because wherever there's a community, municipality, the battle does not necessarily need to be having borders. You know, we are working hard, you know, to make sure that we get to those sort of areas, because at the end of the day, all these people, we use what we have, which is in the creative sector, this is art, to just stimulate, you know, or activate, you know, or work as a catalyst, so that when the markets or audience responds, then we start begin to talk about pressing issues, you know, of that particular society. So this is a room full of ambassadors,
Yep.
you know, that can sort of solve almost all our problems, you know. So I think that if we can have that, I think a lot can change. So we don't touch anything in BOM if it doesn't bring hope. So we need to, whatever that we do, it needs to bring hope to the creative sector and the communities where they come from.
I like that. That's where we're going to end it. Okay, we don't touch anything that does not bring hope. A few years ago, we were here at the ICC, I think 2 years ago, and we did a piece, if you remember, the ladies' choirs, the women's choir, the female voices were doing Islilo, Samanina, a song that was addressing GBV right here, Kwibom. And so we don't do anything that doesn't bring hope. And from that festival, the communities and the audiences that were watching us, even on YouTube, they were saying, wow, what a festival, to speak relevantly to social ills like gender-based violence through arts, through creative, through the choral sounds. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me appreciate one more time the founder, the CEO of BOM, Mr. Sidney Okonga. Thank you. My next guest into the studio, but I'm going to leave him alone in the studio and join the audience. I'm going to invite Mr. Nick MTHATHA. Before we have a beautiful panel here of stakeholders that we have invited, I need Nick to come and address us. Please welcome Mr. Nick MTHATHA. But I'm going to leave you here to stand and talk to us. There's a part of the program that says keynote address. He says to me, no, I'm not doing keynote address, but I'm going to say something that is very key. So please, another warm welcome for Nick MTHATHA.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is again a pleasure to be here. It's always difficult to follow the act when Mr. Batko Mafani has been on stage, and I really enjoyed the conversations that they had with Sidney Qoqonga. I think the insights that we've gathered there are great. I'm going to try and be very brief because of the time. I'm aware that there are panel discussions that that need to take place, and therefore I do not want to take too much time. I'm going to put my glasses there because I realize I might not need them. I just want to briefly reflect on the theme of this conference, of this, actually the finale this year, which Mr. Kokonga has framed as the 30 years of democracy. What are the lessons coming out of the 30 years of democracy? It is a big discussion, and it is one of those discussions that you get people coming from very different angles at this discussion. In it also, it involves some emotions. It involves some loyalties. There are people that will look at it from an ideological perspective. There are people that will look at it from a very pragmatic perspective. But I think as the BOM fraternity, if I would use that expression, as the BOM fraternity, we want to look at this from the creative sector perspective and say what does it mean for us. So I'm going to quickly rattle through some of the observations, and you may or may not agree with me. It's okay. In fact, I like it more if you don't agree with me, because then I will be able to learn and be educated at something. If we had time at the end of this, I would say let's engage and have a discussion. But you know, during lunch or during whatever times we can engage. There are a number of areas that, as I said, I will rattle through, I'll touch through, because I want to get to the point. And the ultimate point that I want to get to is how does this affect the BOM ecosystem going forward? What have we learned? And therefore, how do we take those lessons going forward? Now, the interesting thing about the 30 years of democracy is that in South Africa, they've been characterized really and driven from a political perspective. So when we talk about democracy, when we talk about 1994, most of us, if not all of us, remember and know and recognize that it was primarily a political change. It was a change in a political ideology and a change in the political power that was in the country, and there are certain things that we've learned, you know, out of this. When you look at it from a political lens over the 30 years, there've been very interesting developments, starting from seeing a pattern in terms of what happens to liberation movements over a period of time, and the resilience of some of those. And I think in South Africa, we've seen a much better resilience of some of the liberation movements. Within that, and in South Africa, we didn't have one liberation movement, we had a number of them. But we learned a lot of lessons out of that it does not matter what kind of influence or power you have. Over time, it moves away from just being ideological loyalty to being practical loyalty. People want to see real things happening in their lives, and if things don't change really and practically in their lives, you see some serious change, some serious concerns that are being expressed. And I'll come back to that point when I sort of reflect on what is recently happening. Over the years, again, we have seen a struggling economy. The South African economy in 1994, we went through a period where it was on an upward trajectory. We're seeing growth rates that were high. But that was also consistent with what was happening globally at that time. We're seeing some economic growth that was happening. So we sort of piggybacked on that. But South Africa created a great sentiment globally in terms of what can happen. So investors globally were beginning to have confidence in developing economies, loving what's going on. South Africa was a poster child of what can happen when people work together. And therefore we were seeing flows of monies into developing economies, and therefore they were performing a lot better. Over time, the honeymoon was over, and we started seeing the decline, and that also compounded by the bubbles of particularly in 2000. Some of you, I don't know, those that were around will remember that there was this craze about Y2K. People were investing in the technology stocks because, you know, Y2K was going to solve things, and nothing really happened, and the bubble just burst. You know, computers were working on the 1st of January 2000, computers still continued working when everybody had predicted that things might just collapse, and that particular euphoria that was accompanying that economically burst. But there were a number of other economic bubbles or bursts that happened. 2008, the property burst, starting from the US, and that went throughout the world. So and our economy, unfortunately, throughout that had been on a downward trajectory in terms of growth. We got to a stage of absolute stagnation, where our economy has not been growing for a long time. The good news, and what we are hearing is there's good sentiment. We're seeing collaboration, business and government, and therefore there is a sense of confidence in our economy. In the meeting that the president had last week, or it was early this week, with the business sector, there was an agreement that this economy should be growing by about 3.5% by the end of next year. That will be great news, because an economy that is growing is an economy that creates jobs, and therefore we need to be able to create jobs. And talking just the last aspect on the economic developments in the 30 years, we've seen the decimation of jobs. Instead of a creation of jobs, we've seen the decimation of jobs. And I want to say here at this point that is the biggest contribution that an organization like BOM can make. One of the most significant entry points for young people to get into the job market and labor market is the arts. It's got very, very low entry costs, very low entry barriers. It takes talent and skill. It takes resilience, and you are in. You know, there are many young people that if we're not of the arts, they wouldn't have been where they are. So when we talk about stagnation and jobs, the lack of jobs, I think it becomes very important to remember that what is happening here, what we are part of, it is one of the key solutions, fundamental solutions. And sometimes, having been involved in the arts, in the music industry, when I was at Samro, I used to get really frustrated that nobody seems to see that actually, if you can expand this, you're going to be able to create jobs. When I started seeing the arts being taken out of school curricula, sports being taken out of school curricula, it really looked very myopic, because the lowest barriers of entry is where people can use their natural talent. If I can wake up and I'm good at something and I can use my talent, I don't need somebody to invest in me, I can use it, that is something, and we should have been encouraging. So I think to that extent, the work that BOM does in terms of the talent search, I think is really responding directly to that. We also saw our society going through some really serious upheavals over the last 30 years. There was a time when we all felt like we are the Rainbow Nation. We were inspired by the Archbishop Desmond Tutu, and everybody felt like this is a nation, it's a Rainbow Nation, we are all together. But we have struggled as a society to define what does it mean to be South African. You know, the South Africanness as a society. And that, I think, has been one of the biggest challenges, that we've struggled so socially to foster a common identity. We tried in many things. And again, I think it is also, we have underplayed the importance of arts and culture in our society, because we have not elevated it. And I'm going to be slightly controversial. in a sense that throughout the 30 years, one of the things that we've seen is that we have not been, the arts and culture portfolio has not really been given significant drivers, you know, except for one or two exceptions, and I'm not going to mention names. Except for one or two exceptions of the ministers, generally we haven't had strong leadership, strong visionary leadership that seeks to get arts and culture into the fabric of society where we collaborate and we work together. And that lack of, or that inability to build a cohesive culture of a nation, I think has taken us backwards. And that's one of the lessons I think we are beginning to see and learn from the 30 years of democracy. Technologically, we've always lagged the rest of the world, except for mobile telephony, where I think Africa, ourselves and Africa, particularly South Africa, has driven the adoption of mobile telephony. So the likes of MTN, particularly MTN, in driving, you know, the expansion into the continent and in the rest of the developing world in the world. You know, MTN was one of those companies that, and I talked to them freely because they sponsored this conference. Otherwise, I wasn't going to give them the mileage. But MTN has been one of those companies that has gone into uncharted territories. The bravery to go to Iran, I mean, it's really, really something that's commendable. But except for mobile telephony, we've sort of lacked, and we've lacked at a policy level. You know, the whole debacle around migration from analog to digital has been some of the things that we were shooting ourselves in the foot, because we could have leapfrogged, we could have gone far ahead. So I think at a policy level, as far as technology, we failed, but there were beautiful green shoots, you know, that we're seeing in terms of our mobile telephony. We are dominant as a company and the best, and among the best in the world, not just in South Africa, not just in the continent, but our mobile telephony infrastructure and business, you know, is certainly trailblazing. We've been doing very poorly as far as the environment is concerned. We were driving into East London yesterday, and just my heart sank as we were driving through town, because you just see lack of maintenance of our environment, litter everywhere, etc. And it's interesting. My wife and I are going away to Rwanda in a few weeks' time. And one of the things that made us choose Rwanda is we normally, during our anniversary, travel. So we're traveling to Rwanda. And one of the things that made us choose that is just the story around that city and the country as a whole. So if you go to Kigali, one of the cleanest cities, in fact, the cleanest city in the continent, one of the places that are well managed, the infrastructure is working, the expansion of infrastructure to the entire society is happening at a rapid pace. We have failed environmentally in that aspect, because in our country now, everywhere you really see degradation of infrastructure that is also affecting the environment. It was really sad to read about a municipality, I think it was in the Western Cape, where they were literally draining sewage into the rivers. It was really scary to even hear of that. So the lessons that are coming out of that have not been particularly great. But all in all, we have also seen, and I want to conclude this by just coming back to the political thing and combine it with what's happening within the legal framework. We have seen when our politics falter, where we've seen the strength of the institutional mechanisms such as the legal fraternity, Now, I know it's a very controversial point because depending on where you stand, it's like, the legal sector must not interfere in politics, and you must separation of powers. But somehow you have to have the system of balances, of checks and balances. And I basically think that the interplay between the legal system and the politics in our country is actually a very positive development. It's able to move us forward. It is what has prevented South Africa from going the route of many other developing world or countries in the developing world, where things can completely spiral out of hand. So that has been a good development. So we've looked back quickly at the back, but what does this all come to? I bet that if any one of you, the problem with prophecy is that with hindsight, all of us are prophets. But if 10 years ago I said to you, in this country, you're going to find the ANC ruling together with the DA, most of you would have said you're insane. It's just never going to happen. It's just not going to happen. But it has happened. And it has happened because of the phenomenon that the world revolves around, and is the concept of ecosystems. In a sense that life sustains itself in some way and some form. And the way life sustains itself is by way of ecosystems. It adapts and it changes within the ecosystem. So there were many players in the system, and you had to create, for this country to move forward, and to see that the ecosystem is working, is when you see the interdependence between players in an ecosystem that would naturally not be common players. When you go to a national park, like Kruger National Park, every animal there is important. Both the predators and the ones that are hunted, everything is important. But when you talk to a lion, or when you talk to a springbok, it sees a lion as a nuisance in the park. They wish for a time when there won't be lions, because they can walk around and roam around and they cannot be hunted, they cannot be eaten. But we need the lions in that to eat the springboks and continue the ecosystem working. So the ecosystem works in that way. So, and at the heart of it is interdependence. And we've seen that playing itself out. For this country to move forward, we have seen forced interdependence. The voters, as the catalysts and as the players within the ecosystem, have forced that interdependence. And what that interdependence must lead to, and what it will lead to if the ecosystem has to remain, is a balance. So I think those of us who are loyal to certain political parties and persuasions are going to have to get used to the fact that we may never ever go back to that situation again, because once the ecosystem moves and creates a balance, every effort goes towards creating that equilibrium. But what does that mean for us? Which is, I think, the most important thing. It means that there's a creation of the energy. This ecosystem has got to be maintained by energy. Nothing in society maintains energy like the creative sector. So what BOM is doing, and what the activities that are happening in BOM are able to create that energy within the sector. It creates culture. It creates the way people interact. It brings about, in particular, the great balance. A very important point was made when Patko and Sydney were speaking here about the role of BOM that it plays in rural communities, for an example. And Patko made a point that you see sports, going towards the so-called middle C schools, and the rural schools are left behind. In fact, I think it was the principal from Welcome yesterday also that made that point. So how do we make sure that schools in rural communities, schools in peri-urban areas are able to be competitive? It is through a structure like this. It is a balancing force within our ecosystem. It balances things. It makes sure that kids who would have been forgotten, are remembered and are given the center stage. It mainstreams arts and culture in rural schools, in peri-urban schools, and it makes it important. It brings it to the fore. You go to the YouTube channel, people sitting all over the world can now see young people from some place that they can't even pronounce because of the many clicks, but they see this and they fall in love with it. It is that balancing force and that equalizing force that this organization plays. So BOM's activities so far are very critical. And I urge, if anything else, is that when we all who are here, when we live with that thought, that it is not just superficial. You know, it's not just for entertainment that we are here. We are part of a movement and an ecosystem to ensure that there is balance. When we look back in our 30 years of democracy, we see, for an example, if you studied economics, you'd understand the concept of Gini coefficient, where there's serious disparity between those that have got and those that don't have. You know, very serious disparities. In fact, South Africa has got one of the highest, if not the highest, Gini coefficient in the world. In other words, the rich are really rich and the poor are really poor. And you need some kind of a balancing factor. And this is what BOM is doing. It's giving opportunities to young people who would otherwise not have those opportunities. It's opening doors for people's natural talents to be tapped on and be utilized. It's creating an opportunity for self-sustenance. We are moving away from an era of jobs. I can tell you that and I always challenge my political friends, you know, when I talk to friends who are politicians, I say, but let us stop promising young people that we are going to create jobs for them. That era is passing. There is no way. It doesn't matter. Even if we can achieve growth rates above 3%, to create jobs for people, for the young people now that are in the system, we're going to have to grow beyond 10% annual growth rate for at least 5 years. And I don't think that's realistic. I don't even think that's sustainable. So what do we need to do? We need to be able to create the ability and the new culture of self-sustainability. These young people that are coming here, that are competing, that are showcasing their talents, they need to not be having a mindset that I want to be employed somewhere. They need to be having a mindset that I'm going to create my own employment, I'm going to be self-sustaining. Now there are categories. You can be self-employed, in other words, just doing your things to be able to sustain yourself, or you can be entrepreneurial and be able to create viable businesses that hire other people. That is the only way I think that we will be able to make a big difference. And the role of BOM in that aspect is very important. So it goes beyond the surface of entertainment and beautiful music. It goes into the fabric of our society in dealing with some of the very sticky and fundamental problems in our society. And it is for that reason that I believe that this initiative needs to be supported. We need to be calling our friends and colleagues and people that we know that have the muscle and the ability to support initiatives like this so that it can move forward. Thank you very much, Program Director.
Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a very short nature break while we rearrange the stage, and we're going to have a panel. 6 of them are going to sit on the stage with me, and we're going to have a 20 minutes conversation before the breakaways. Thank you so much. Okay, the ladies are straight out of this door, straight into the ladies. The gents are right. The gents are right. You walk straight towards the door, and then you turn left, and that's where you'll find the gents. So let's just do that exercise while we rearrange the stage.